time for the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages this morning. We begin with this day our sister publication as usual. A really full front page this morning, leading with Vice President Osinbajo, who says Supreme Court seems to be exceeding constitutional limits in election matters. It says legal interpretations must bow to people's wish. Cites Zamfara case in 2019 polls. He also visits Hanifa's family in Kano and prays for the repose of her soul. More headlines on this day newspaper. ASUU 2023, ASUU leads PDP to notch to visit IBB in Minna, discussing raging issues. Nigeria drags UK's crime agency to court over £150 million Abacha loot. The US and UK are opposing that move. While the High Court affirms Matawale as Zamfara governor, APC hails ruling. Above the nameplate of this day this morning, adulterated fuel, President Buhari angry, orders query of NMDPRA head. 371 litres in 6 cargoes and not 100 million litres of petrol affected. Regulatory agency admits high sulfur content in contaminated products.
Well, the Punch seems to be going with 100 million litres affected as it leads with adulterated petrol. Says the federal government may return the fuel to suppliers. And it says the figure is 100 million litres affected according to marketers. Well, the writers to that story, fuel shortage, queues may last till weekend. That's according to marketers in Nigeria. NNPC increases supply to breach supply gap, recalls polluted fuel. Leading photographs are from Abuja and Lagos. Above the masthead, Nigerians made 1,350 calls about data breaches in 2021. That's according to a report. This and many more, you can pick a copy of the Punch.
A quick look at the Nation newspaper. Pressure on Buhari to reject reworked electoral bill. Alleged 2.9 billion naira fraud. Court orders EFCC to stop all actions against Okorocha. Senate OK 6 additional law school campuses. And Lagos Blue Line is 85% ready, and that's according to an official in the state.
And some of the headlines on the front page of Nigerian Tribune. Academic Staff Union of Universities insists on strike, says the federal government is dribbling them. More headlines on Nigerian Tribune. 2023 elections, Akeredolu says any party with northern candidates will lose. And the federal government withdraws adulterated PMS from market, says methanol content in product above Nigeria's specification.
A quick look at the foreign papers, shall we? The Guardian reports on a group of conservative MPs who are accused of trying to derail the government's own green agenda.
The Times now, Tories push PM to act faster on waiting lists.
And for the press preview, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello, who joins us from our offsite studio this morning. Emmanuel, good morning. Good to have you. Let's take a look at this day newspaper and one of its many headlines this morning. Vice President Osinbajo saying that the Supreme Court or courts may be exceeding constitutional limits when it comes to election matters. He's citing the 2019 Zamfara case where the court decided that the APC, the winners of that election, did not have any invalid or conduct any invalid primaries, and as such did not yield any candidates for that election. Now, they went on to give those seats to parties who had the second largest votes in that election. Now, the vice president is saying a rerun would have sufficed or would have been a fairer decision. But I say, and other people are saying, why not put your house in order? Because an invalid primary election is a consequence or as a result of intra-party disputes that the APC was having at that time and is what they're having right now as we head into the general election in 2023.
Well, that's a good retort from you, Nkechi, to the vice president. But you also need to look at the kernel of what the vice president is, Osinbajo. And you know he's been touted as someone who is interested in the presidential race. And so he's saying he's weighing on strongly on democracy, the survival of democracy, good governance, better elections, transparency in those elections, and of course, issues of outcome. What he's raising is a much more serious crisis than you are saying the Zamfara example that he raised. In the past, you see situations where elections are over, but the courts are giving all sorts of judgment. And so the vice president is actually questioning the role of courts. He's just verbalizing what many people worry about. Many people talk about this again and again. And for those of us who've been there and participated in some of those things, it's actually a very troubling situations where sometimes courts will just overturn elections. You'll be shocked that 2 years into some government courts are still people are still in courts. Normally, and in most cases, the first year is always almost wasted in courts with the governors, dealing with those issues, or some other office holder dealing with those issues, not concentrating on even building a cabinet. And this thing seems to eat deep into, what we have here. So the vice president is looking for, talking about this, weighing on it, that maybe there should be better solution. You're right, Nkechi, the house should be in order, and people are free to seek redress in court where they feel that they've been shortchanged. Why not? The people should do the right thing. But the Osinbajo is actually wondering if sometime the courts don't overthrow popular will, because there are politicians who have boasted that, look, if people go to the field to cast their vote, they will get it from the courts. So where they can't get it from the field, they'll get it from the courts. But democracy is shortchanged there because popular will is what should guide this, should lead it. It should be powered by popular will. It should be driven by popular will. That's what democracy is all about. So here we see the vice president being professorial about it himself, a legal luminary, and someone who knows these things, saying that, look, in most cases, it seems as if the Supreme Court seems to be exceeding its constitutional limits in these matters. As we go into the elections, I'm sure these are very serious areas we should look into, so that we don't have all those cases that drag on almost forever, and then you begin to see results, people leaving office, and sometimes can see some serious confusion in even the tenure crisis that you have. He's just saying that a little bit of, more of that can be reduced, so that when we are done at the field, we know we are done and winners are declared, and then we don't have too many of these litigations dragging on and on.
Indeed, and not the courts deciding the elected officials for Nigerians who've gone out to the polls. But staying with the front page of this day, Mano Bello, Nigeria is locked with UK's crime agency in a legal battle over 150 million pounds Abacha loot. US, UK oppose move. What more do we know about this story?
Well, yeah, it's a well-detailed story, and that almost like an exclusive to the paper, and a very interesting report by Emmanuel Ade, as usual. Very deep and very interesting story that everyone who is concerned about the celebrated Abacha loot should go into, because this story also gave details on how those loots were actually, how they came about, the mind-boggling thefts that happened in those terrible years, and how even they happened. It's actually almost like a lesson or an insight into how these things happen and how they're stashed away. But the bulk of the story also dwell on the amount we are talking about, the huge figures, almost also mind-boggling figures that we're talking about, and how their repatriation are running into troubled waters across the world. Very interesting story. And if you're interested in what those Abacha loot can do for us as a people, where they can be invested, especially now that we are talking about the crisis of cash in the system and all that. This is a very, very interesting story, and like I say, it's well detailed, and it will be interesting to see how back in the day, the kind of things that really happened, how those monies were actually stolen in their billions. Also, the story is talking about even people who are alive today, who actually aided and abated those times. So that's the one of the interesting angle of the story, and to see the crisis of third world countries, of developing nations, stealing the little that they have, stashing them somewhere around the world, and of course the crisis of repatriating those monies. It's also a story that should be able to prick the conscience of world powers where these monies are stashed, that look, they should deal with all the bottlenecks and find ways to return these monies to their rightful owner, because they should be returned to where they are needed. It's not as if some of the banks did anything wrong. I mean, they were just collecting monies. But again, countries around the world know that something went wrong and that this can be corrected. It's also an appeal to their conscience beyond the legalism of it and the other bottlenecks around returning those money. That look, they should think deep and see how these things are returned to countries where they were stolen from.
Emmanuel, something's gone wrong with our petrol importation supply chain, and this day says the president is angry. Is that enough?
Well, it's a good thing, Kenneth, that we are seeing an angry president. It's not every other time we see President Buhari getting angry. So the fact that he's even angry in the first place is something, and he's pushing. He's saying, "Look, somebody should answer for it," and that's the kind of serious leadership that some people have been looking for. With some visibility around the issue of the president's getting angry and saying that something has to be done. Because in the past, what you have is a situation where it looks as if no one is in charge, no one is controlling the system, and you're talking about adulterated fuel in the system. Of course, it's not such a strange phenomenon around the world that you have, adulterated fuel. But what other nations and what serious countries do is to deal with the matter head on, to get somebody to answer for it, and not just to allow these things to pile up and to happen. And so if we're getting a president who is angry, like the paper is reporting, well, we need more of those anger. And it's not just in this situation. Who are holding the supply? Why are we having this crisis now? So those are the sort of issues that serious leadership should look into. And yes, anger is good, but it's not enough. It's just emotion. There should be policy trust. There should be some effort. There should be, we should see people really we should see head rollings around this issue. So anger is a beautiful emotion, but action is a better thing that will solve some of these problems.
Emmanuel, President Buhari is always having so many emotions in reaction to matters of the nation. Now, the Nigerian Tribune is saying ASUU, the Academic Staff Union of University, is still insisting on their strike. They say they will go on strike February 14th on Monday. They are saying that the federal government is dribbling them, and President Buhari's promises that has no weight, Emmanuel.
No, yesterday, this was playing around the issue of the date when you say that there's no love lost between ASUU and the FG. Yes, it's a sad thing, and the word dribbling should be one that we should stop everyone dribbling the lecturers. And when you look at the number of kids that are going to be affected, when you look at the issues involved, when you look at promises not kept in the past, you wonder where the priority of this government is. Of course, it's a lingering thing that has come from successive government. But again, this is the first time probably that ASUU is talking about being dribbled. Being played with, being toyed with, promises not kept. And while parents will always say that, look, we did our kids in school, parents too should look at what ASUU is talking about, that we have a government that is not responding to them, that is not keeping promises, not keeping agreements. It's actually very annoying when you read stories like this. You have a government that will call these people to the table and say, look, call off your strike, we are going to deal with the matter, and then they renege on their promises. It is stories like this that make you think whether there is serious leadership or serious commitment to even education. And this is, like we said yesterday, the accusation up to now is that, look, the people that are who are dribbling ASUU are people that don't care, whose kids are not in these schools, whose kids are in other schools around the world, and so they couldn't be bothered what happened. But for the majority who have their kids in these universities, who can afford the private universities, the very expensive ones, this is such a very painful situation for everyone. And on the 14th, where everybody will be thinking of some kind of love affair somewhere, it's no love story for both the students and the lecturer, and then you have the FG that is dribbling them watching. I think it's a story that we should stay on, because at the very heart of it is the crisis of this government not keeping most of its commitments, especially in the area of education.
Well, sir, thank you so much, Emmanuel. We appreciate your analysis this morning once more. See you again tomorrow.